welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today is Netflix's 121st film. It's the psychological horror from 2018 called Cam. It's directed by Daniel Goldhaber. It stars Madeline Brewer, Darragh, Melora Walters, Devin Druid, Imani, Hakim, and Michael Dempse. And I said them a lot better than I did the last episode. MJ, how are you?
You did say that when you got to this point, you were going to get them right, and I doubted you. So I'm a bigger man. I'm happy to say that you proved me wrong.
I didn't even practice them again.
I don't believe that.
I'm super proud of myself. So we are here to chat about this film, I guess, and we start our show with our Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what it's all about. So what's this one about for you?
Cool. So Cam is about a 20-something girl who has her own raunchy webcam show. She has her account hacked and online persona stolen. When she looks to investigate, things seem a lot more sinister than initially thought.
Intriguing. Oh, I like the intrigue that you've developed in that. I've said the same things. I've just said a girl or a cam girl's identity is stolen and she wants to work out who took it. Same story. It's nice.
I do love your short and sharp. You've molded your Fast Flicks in the 120 odd episodes we've done. You sort of gone through different phases, and I think you're in the short and sharp phase where it's like you cannot argue with this Fast Flicks because it's so broad that is you can't say that's not what happens in the film.
Exactly. I just I don't have the ability to share that into anything further.
I'm looking forward to see what your next phase of Fast Flicks is going to be, though, because it could be anything. It might be. Remember your very first one was like a paragraph?
Yeah. I was like, how long can I go? And then it was like questions. Everything was a question. So who knows?
That's right. Yeah.
All right. Well, we talk now about what we learned about the creation of this one. So what can you share with us about how this was put together?
Yeah, before I do start this, I think it's probably going to be apt to do a spoiler alert nice and early because I think there probably will be some spoilers within this part of the podcast. So if you do want to watch Cam and you don't want it to be spoiled, then turn us off now and have a watch and then come back and listen to us chat about the film that you just watched. So because I'm going to spoil it basically right now. But so the screenwriter Isa Mazai. So she was a former cam girl herself, which I found interesting to read after watching the film because obviously there's a lot more relevance to everything we saw on screen after knowing that. But so she originally wanted to create a documentary film about cam girls. She then decided that documentary was probably not the best medium for it. The idea being that no matter how much you can sort of show and explain in a documentary, people still don't really get it, and you probably try and tell a story from your perspective. So the idea of going down a thriller horror type story to tell about this sort of industry can really resonate with the way people, their emotions that they release when they watch a film. So it's an interesting take, and I kind of like where she's gone with that. So much of the story that we did watch was from her own experiences as a cam girl, and this is where some spoilers will come in, but the story element of Lola having her image stolen came from the fact that Mazai had her cam videos pirated and reposted online without crediting her. So it's a little bit different to the film, but same sort of premise there. Her own interactions with police officers are taken from her and other sex workers' experiences of basically being dismissed whenever they do have an issue with the law. And her and the director, Daniel Goldhaber, they've been friends since high school. So he had also previously directed some of her pornographic videos because prior to this, his directing credits had basically been a couple of shorts and he'd also done some student films. So they were both, pretty fresh and pretty green coming into this project. So which is pretty cool when you consider what they've actually been able to create. The film itself was shot over 20 days. That was around the end of March in 2017, so basically wrapped up within a month. And then it had its world premiere at the Fantasia International Film Festival on July 18. I believe that's a Montreal film festival. And basically not long after that, Netflix jumped on and acquired the distribution rights to the film. And then it was released on Netflix on November 16 in 2018. So one of the films, we saw this a while back when Netflix jumped on a lot of films from festivals, chucked them on their service as soon as they saw them. Obviously, there's always a bit of a bidding war with other studios when it comes to that. And they got this one nice and early, and here we are.
Yeah, I think that you've summed it up quite well. It's always hard coming in after you to go, oh, what? I'm sitting here on my list going, yep, tick, tick, tick. But yeah, I think you've covered everything pretty well. Like, a lot of those stories that the screenwriter took from her own life. I mean, the idea, I think in the film, one of the police officers says, what's the weirdest thing you've ever had to do? And she said, she was actually asked this by several Hollywood executives in meetings once they learned what her past profession was. So just that idea that people have the guts or the balls to
not cool.
To actually, yeah, not cool at all. The running theme throughout here too is Alice is our main protagonist, and there's a lot of Alice in Wonderland references throughout. You've got her online screen names like the Mad Hatter and Mr. Teapot, and it's almost this idea through the looking glass of this computer screen, I guess, is another way that you could look at it too.
I love that. I didn't pick that up watching it, but I read that theory afterwards. And then I always like giving filmmakers credit, and I also wonder whether they had really picked up on how much of this was like an Alice in Wonderland retelling, because it's really strong. It's a strong case, and it's really nice.
I don't know if you picked up on this, but I had to double check. So you start the film, and with a Netflix film, you get that Netflix logo at the start. And this was I'm pretty 99% sure this is our first Netflix film that we've done where it's got that new colorful end that changes into that rainbow sort of color. Because I went back and looked at last week's show, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and that had the old white one with the red Netflix logo. So with this one, it's the new one that sort of evaporates into that rainbow color. So I thought that was a cool little. We're into the newer films.
Good eye, mate. Very good eye.
I translated the title "Cam" into a couple of different things. In Greek, it was called The Camera Girl. So all very similar. In Hungary, Ukraine, and Russia, it's called Webcam. In Mexico, it's called Blocked Account, which gives a bit more context to the film. And then in Vietnam, it's called The Imposter, which so a different range, I guess, on that idea of what this film is all about.
You know what I prefer out of all of them is Webcam, because Cam, I get it, like she's a cam girl. They don't say Webcam, and I get it, and it makes sense. But because it's someone's name, like if your name's Cameron or Campbell, Cam.
Yeah, true.
It becomes a little bit confusing. No, it's a little bit confusing, and that's the only reason. Because otherwise, I got no issue with it.
Yeah, won 5 awards, 3 nominations, mainly at these horror festivals that you mentioned. Like it played at Fantasia Fest, Fantastic Fest, London Film Festival, AFI Fest, etc. Played at the Monster Fest in Australia, so it had a cinematic release in Australia. And then at the budget of about $1 million, which it's a pretty cheap budget. Didn't say that. Yeah, I was like, I didn't. No. Okay, good. Well, I didn't even look up what else made for $1 million because I thought that was pretty low anyway. So
we know $1 million is very low. Hey, with that in mind, I know you sort of mentioned that it won a few awards, but like it won some good awards. I know a lot of them are more genre film festivals, but it won Best Screenplay and Best First Feature at the Fantasia Film Festival. At the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, it won Best Actress with Madeline Brewer, and it won Best Production Design. And even at Fangoria Chainsaw Awards, it was nominated for Best Streaming Premiere Film, nominated for Best Screenplay. Like, these are big awards, considering, it's $1 million film with a couple of people behind it who don't have don't have many credits in the bank in the film industry. To come out and do that, I think that's a massive effort.
Yeah, well said. Consensus time. What could you see from the critics and the audience for this one?
So it's pretty similar on both platforms I look at. So it's a 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb, 26,000 ratings, which is pretty good. And then it's, as I said, it's very similar on Letterboxd at 3 out of 5. Nearly 50,000 ratings on Letterboxd for this film. And I actually do recall seeing, probably when this film, maybe 6 months after this film came out, reading an article, basically, I think it's just one of those clickbait things on Facebook that struck my attention. It was basically saying, you got to watch this film on Netflix. Like it's doing some sort of good work with the people who are more into their films and people actually wanting to watch this. And the fact that it's got nearly double the amount of ratings on Letterboxd and IMDb is certainly something I've never seen.
extremely high. And talking of extremely high, Rotten Tomatoes, the critics had this at 93% on 98
Well, that's why I'm reading
reviews.
articles about it.
Yeah, certified fresh. The audience though had it a lot lower, very similar to what we had for the others at 54% on about 1,200.
Yeah,
So
that is a lot lower.
Critics loved this one indeed.
Mm.
Early thoughts, Simon. What are your early thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it was like a really cool, modern, and pretty ambitious premise. That feeling of being locked out of your account, that your online persona is almost as important as your real life one. That's captured really well, and that's really true for so many people. If you get locked out of your Facebook account, you panic, right? Like you think someone's like taking over your life. You'd almost rather lose your bloody credit card. Like it's crazy, but that's the world we're at right now. And I think they capture it really well, as I said. So the thriller elements of the film work pretty well too. That idea of there being something going on that doesn't quite add up, it's actually downright creepy when it gets into the crux of this film. So it's not my favorite movie, but it did a lot right considering it, wasn't really working with much from the start. So I was pretty impressed.
Good, yeah. I thought it was engaging enough. Thought there some pretty good performances. The conclusion left me pretty unsatisfied though, which made it hard for me to reflect back and have a lot of positive thoughts about the experience, I guess. So, some issues towards the end, which I'm sure we will break down a little bit further on.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to talk about that sort of stuff, actually.
Good. All right. Well, characters. What are some characters in this one that you wanted to discuss?
Well, look, considering it was, quite an engaging film, there's not too many to really dig into. We've got Alice, who her online persona being Lola, but apart from her, there's not a heap to talk to. But she, as a character, I think it worked really well. It never really wavered. There was never a moment where I kind of thought that she wasn't being true to the character that they'd set up. So I really enjoyed the fact that she was committed to this gig that she had, almost obsessively committed to this job as a webcam girl, or whatever you call them. Sorry. But she still had that slight shameful stigma attached to it with her family and the outside world in general, knowing what she did, and she wanted to keep that really private. But for her, it was all about the gravitas that comes with it. Like even when her online persona was receiving all this praise and doing really well, she didn't like the fact that she was missing out on all that. So she put so much on the line to recapture that gravitas that she was receiving that she went down a really dangerous road to get to the bottom of it, which is why I was probably more satisfied with the ending, the idea of her jumping back on the horse because, this is her thing and this is what she does. And yeah, she's almost obsessed with that profession.
Yeah, I think you've put it very well. I think the performance worked really made you feel a lot more for this character and understand what was going on. But just, I guess, in comparison, what you're saying, like I felt like I needed more as to why she was working in this industry or like what had drawn her to this industry in the first place. And I guess a bit of that is about that self-gratification and she's always talking about making up the ranks and making it to number one. And like I wanted to know as a character, if she got to number one, does that mean she's got enough cash that she's happy to give it away and try something else? Or
what do you reckon?
Well, the mum gave her praise and seemed supportive even when it comes out what she does for a profession, and she wasn't able to take that on board. So it was almost like this idea that she's happy for all this likes and all this interest from random people that mean nothing to her, whereas the people in her actual life, that her brother and her mum, she wasn't able to. The brother seemed switched on, and the brother seemed like he didn't really want much to do with that situation, but she couldn't read that. She was more worried about the superficial ideas, which
for sure.
I guess that was how I felt about her.
Yeah, well, she was obsessive with it, but I mean, it's like anyone who puts everything they can into getting number one, no matter whether it's sport, whether it's gaming, whether it's whether it's in your own line of work, and depending what number one actually means for you. Once you get there, you're not satisfied and you're not going to stop. You find another goal or you find another obsession to keep drawing on. And if she got to number one, she would be obsessed with maintaining number one or doing something outlandish to stay there. That was her personality.
Yeah. All right. Who else have you got?
I've got Tinker. I didn't catch his actual name, but his obviously
Arnold.
online name. Yeah, Arnold. That's right. I also thought as a character he was captured pretty well. I mean, these guys exist, right, in the real world, and I imagine they would be obsessive, stalkerish, elusive, sweaty, unsure of themselves. But I mean, his obsession is more about the connection he has online rather than in person as well. So even though he finally gets Lola into his hotel room and he planned to help her, he still couldn't resist logging on and connecting with something that he knows is already a bot. But he lives in that world basically and doesn't really function very well outside of it.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. He's a creep. The men in this film are all. There's not many positives apart from the brother, who we didn't even get to see enough of.
Yeah.
His mates are all, all they care about is that their mates with, their brothers into this sort of stuff, their brothers sisters into this sort of stuff, and it was hard to find any redeeming qualities in Barney as well, who similar sort of character that just didn't seem to have any nice qualities about him.
Well, Barney, to me, his infatuation seemed to be more of a power thing. He must have money in some capacity, and this is kind of like his dirty little secret on the side, where he feels like he completely owns every aspect of this venture, like from the girls themselves to the entire ranking system, within the entire platform. And unlike Tinker, he does seem to exist the same way offline and online. And that confidence that he has extends into his real life self, which he enjoys meeting the girls in real life. It kind of like adds to his stock. So whereas Tinker's kind of like this guilty obsession that he doesn't exist very well outside of it, Barney's like, I gotta own the whole thing. It's all about power for him.
Yeah, good points. Any other characters?
You kind of touched on the mum before. And I like how she respected what her daughter was doing. And I think that's important because that empowerment statement within the film is important, that it's like, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you're committing to it and you're sticking to your own morals, and that's okay. I think they probably could have done this side of it a little bit better. I think she basically said, I really like what you're doing, because she was watching, the bot doing all these videos and said you're really good. I kind of wish there was more to that, how she could have actually appreciated what her daughter was doing, regardless of just being like, oh, you're really good at it. Like, I don't know, because she's kind of building this little business. And yeah, but I did appreciate the fact that she didn't just go, oh, well, I'm not very proud of what you're doing, or I'm shunning you, or whatever. It added something nice to the story that was important.
Yeah, I think so too. And even the graffiti on the side of the house, she wasn't too upset about that. It was more about, I'm happy you're home. Let's talk it through. Let's sort this out. Good. The director, Daniel Goldhaber.
Yeah, I kind of touched on it, but
yeah,
feature length debut. He helped write the screenplay with Isa Mazzy and also Isabel Link Levy. As I said, he directed a couple of porn films and he done a couple of directed a couple of shorts as well. But this is his real first foray into it.
Yeah, the only thing that popped up for him, he did it was called the 50 States of Fright, where he did the episode or the anthology part on Colorado, which it's a weird thing. Quibi was this thing that sort of existed for a while. It's this little quick bite-size streaming platform that you could access on your phone. And 50 States of Fright, I was very excited about. I watched a few of them. They were going to go through each 50 state and sort of like a horror myth that sort of was known from each state. So cool. he did one of those, which was cool. It's called Red Rum, Colorado. There's one I watched was about this tumbleweed that came in, and sort of kids got stuck in this tumbleweed. They're out there sort of little things. So if I don't know wherever that content's going to land, Quibi couldn't manage to sell off or lease off any of their content, so it's sitting somewhere online to hopefully be revisited at some stage.
So how long were they all?
So Quibi, everything was 10 minutes or under. So the 50 States of Fright were 3 10-part ones generally.
Okay.
Yeah. yeah, like their feature films were like 10 or 12 10-minute segments. So they'll rock up somewhere eventually. I think the thing with Quibi was that they had they said they had like 12 months or 2 years rights to the content, then it reverts back to the creators. So whoever created this stuff, I think it might have been Sam Raimi or someone like that. It's going to go back to them anyway. Or Eli Roth, one of those guys.
Do they still own the rights if they don't exist?
Yeah, that could be the clause. Maybe all this content's just reverted back to the original creators.
Yeah.
So yeah, big $2 billion disaster.
Oh, God, it was always going to be.
Yeah. All right. Same time. What are some ones that stood out in this?
Yes. So the opening scene was belter. I think if you're trying to get this movie financed, just film that scene and go, I'm making a movie and this is the opening scene. So I just love that there was no messing around. It gets you straight in. It introduces exactly what you're doing. They set up this dangerous uneasiness straight away, and that tone never shifts in the entire film. There's always that feeling of something not being right, even before things aren't going right. So obviously the scene I'm talking about is when she obviously has a knife and slits her throat. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat immediately, grabbed my attention. I thought it was an excellent scene. Following on from that was when she got hacked, and you kind of just assume that it's an old video that they're playing, and she's looking through the calendar trying to find out when she did this bathtub scene or this inflatable pool scene. And then when she types hello as Mr. Teapot or whatever, yeah, and then the bot says back, hello, Mr. Teapot. That was awesome. That was when I was like, this movie is actually going to go up a notch. This is more than what I was anticipating. So I was very, very impressed with that. And the other thing that I did like about this film was when Lola or Alice discovered that she didn't know what she looked like. Again, I think every time the movie got a little bit, not stale, but it kept taking turns at a nice pace as to when we wanted something more interesting to happen. And when you realize, like, okay, there's something about this that she doesn't know that they look exactly the same. What is this? It's not a person. It's not a lookalike. Yeah, it's more technical than that, and that piqued my interest as well.
Good. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah. I'm just going to repeat what you said, that opening scene, because I didn't know what this film was about. So to me, that first couple of minutes where they're talking about all these sex toys and camming and all this sort of stuff, I was like, geez, what on earth are we watching? It really really surprised me. And then, like you mentioned, that throat slicing sort of scene, like I was like, okay, well, now I know what this film's about, and I did not know this is what we were covering this week. So the shock or surprise, I guess, was what got me with that.
I'll give you that, yeah.
What are some things that you didn't like in this one?
That was the only scene you liked, mate?
Yeah, I haven't got anything else, sorry.
Yeah, right. No, don't apologise. There were two things I didn't like in this film. One was, and I hate that this was obviously something that was important to them as the filmmakers and especially as a writer. I didn't like the scene with the cops. I didn't like it when he creeped out on her, and then they just didn't help at all. Everything else to that point that was a roadblock felt like a realistic roadblock to me. Obviously trying to get the account sorted, her mum finding out about it. All these things that were difficult for her were like, oh, I can understand why that's happened. That sucks. Let's work through it. This felt just like we put it in for the sake of putting it in, which they kind of did, but it just didn't feel right. And I hate to think that maybe is the way that these things are handled. It just didn't feel right. So I could be completely naive right now by saying this, but watching the film didn't work for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then the other thing I didn't like is when she didn't tell Barney what was going on. I don't think she had any reason to lie to him. When he discovered that she was online and then she was in the bathroom, just be like, yeah, I got hacked. Something's up. Like, he wasn't dangerous per se within this environment. Like, he was probably somewhat dangerous to be hanging out with too much, but he wasn't like, I never thought he was in on it. So it wasn't like you were trying to hide things from him. So it kind of annoyed me that she didn't do that, because she was pretty savvy for the entire film and she made good decisions. So that one didn't work for me either.
Yeah, more so the same scene. To me, that whole idea of him trying to attack her in the bathroom in like this open restaurant that looked like there were lots of people around just didn't seem right. That this guy would think that he could get away with something like that in.
Well, that's the power thing that he's got, though,
Yeah.
right? Like he's got this ownership over her. He feels.
Yeah, but I don't know. It just felt like there's other ways to show power, like you mentioned, because she locks herself in the bathroom, and obviously he's got the notification that she's online and she's in the
Mm.
toilet. Like I don't know, just he drew conclusions that out of nowhere about
Mm.
like surely a normal person would be like, okay, what's going on? All of a sudden it's like she's conning him. How does that make sense if there's someone else online when he can see it's the same image? Like there's just more
I
to it, and
agree.
I thought it was a brash. And I know that you're talking about his power that he has, but it was just a brash decision to make.
But it was also weird by her to like hide from it. Like just
yeah,
like yeah, I that was the whole thing didn't really add up.
yeah. I thought the whole, she's decided she needs to do the joint show and goes to like the set or the location where everyone's filming things, and the whole idea of
Mm.
that toy that sort of made them lose sensation. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know if it was needed. It didn't make me laugh. I don't know whether it's just something that the writers
Didn't
put
make
in
me
because it's
laugh.
something. Yeah, yeah. Because it was like she woke up, in bed, obviously in quite a lot of pain or lost sensation or whatever it was. I don't know. It just didn't fit right. Um,
Mm.
I mentioned this before, but that scene with the mum and her saying that she'd watched the content and thought it was all right, sort of thing. I just would have liked her response to be not just shut mum down straight away. It would have been nice to have someone else on board with her rather than her being this lone person
Mm.
throughout. That whenever she reached out, no one listened to her, and the mum was the one that actually did reach out, and she just sort of knocked her back.
Yeah, it's not a
Yeah,
bad point actually. Although I wonder if there was a level of her knowing that the next steps that she was going to take were pretty dangerous and didn't want to drag her into it. But yeah, it's good. I think
absolutely.
that scene could have been done differently anyway.
Yeah. Last one is just the end, the trying to overcome the bot and the smashing the head on the table and then starting a new account. Like I don't know, I get that she's committed to this profession, committed to doing what she wants to do, and it's sort of like this empowerment idea that she's strong enough to continue, but at the same time, you can be still strong and say I need to piss this off and go somewhere else. So that sort of annoyed me a little bit. I think
Yeah,
maybe
I
just
had it. Yeah,
yeah, it was just so close to her overcoming this bot by injuring herself. It was just I don't know. I just really wasn't a fan.
yeah, I get it. I think I was satisfied with her ability to overcome it and then still just stick to her guns and be like, this is what I do. I'm not getting bullied out of this. Um, so that's why I actually did like the fact that she kept going and created that new account and wanted to go again. In terms of her smashing her face in and doing it, I liked the heightenedness of that scene. I like kind of like figuring out what the hell is going on with this bot and whether she's going to be able to get through with this and make it work. It was because it's a very abstract concept, right? Like you're not going to have this happen in real life right now. As far as I can tell, technology is not that advanced to be
Mm.
able to replicate yourself like that. So it kind of satisfied me in a weird, like abstract brains working overtime to figure out what the hell's going on kind of way.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. What was this one saying? What are some themes or some ideas?
Well, there's a lot about empowerment and control within yourself, within your online community, offline community, whatever you want to call it. Um, but there's also just discussion of your online persona and what that means to you and how important that is to protect and portray the way you want to portray it and receive praise off the back of that if you think you deserve it. Not many films do it. Like you could almost say like Ready Player One does it on steroids, but apart from that, like this is a more grounded in reality kind of way of telling that story.
Yeah, yeah. The only things I've got are very just adding on to what you've said. I guess that idea of your identity, or like this idea of obsession and these online personas, and
Mm.
that strive to just want to continually be to the top and top 50, number one. How far will people go for this online gratification? And what if your online you is more powerful than you yourself? That's
Yeah,
sort of like
great.
that happens with her in this situation because this bot is able to do that, and leads into humanity too. Like you have strength as a human because you can defeat that bot, like Austin Powers at the end almost with those
Yeah,
fembots. You got that
yeah.
ability for humanity to overcome something that's programmed. Online theft, and this, I guess you got to talk about too, this social norm of porn. Sex and violence, is this a dangerous thing? Like I get the idea of sex, but this idea of violence needing to be a part of it as well is just something that's probably a little bit distant to me, and not something that I probably realized or thought was such a big thing in this world.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I really want to backtrack on the points you made about humanity overcoming it, because I think that's a really, really good point you make. That everything that in her world is based around her online persona, and building that up as much as possible. But yet it's the fact that she is human, that she is able to overcome that. And then the actual reality that we live in was the one that saved the day. But then again, that idea of your online persona, as you said, being more important or being bigger than your actual real life persona, that is prevalent in society today. And that's the reason why Instagram got rid of the you displaying how many likes you get on photos, because people are basing their own popularity off whether people double click on a photo or not. And it is so relevant. And this is a heightened way of telling that story. But man, this is a crazy relatable story for so many people, despite the fact that none of us have actually done this specifically. Yeah, like we don't watch webcam girls, and I don't make webcam stuff. But that gratification that people seek online is more important than someone tapping you on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" Like there's so much more to this that you've picked up on there beautifully.
Thank you. All right, what did you take away from this one?
Well, as a movie, I think the thriller side of things actually worked really well. They have that real unknown that they set up. So firstly, they obviously set up this tone of uneasiness, and then something is off and something's going to go wrong at any time. But then the actual plot being around not knowing who is in control of this account, who's behind it, how it's really working. It's a really engaging way to watch a movie, and I think it's a perfect way to frame a 90-minute film where they really do want you to be completely engaged the whole time. They don't want to give you a break, and that works for a short film. It was great.
Yeah, mine sort of leads on to the last part you're talking about, where I think this is probably a good wake-up call for a lot of young people about their online presence and their identity, and who they interact with and what they say can lead to real life situations or real life problems, and real life emotion. So yeah,
I think that's a kick-ass takeaway. That's awesome.
All right, I'm Debbie. Did you jump on to check anyone out at any stage?
I did. This was a good one because it was really pissing me off that I couldn't figure out who the hell the brother was. Like Jordan, like so familiar. I'm like, I know this dude, and it was Tyler from 13 Reasons Why, which I didn't watch I think I've only seen the first 2 seasons of that show. I feel like one of those shows that really should have been a one and done kind of show. Like it was a great first season, and don't try and capitalize on the money that you've made off it. Just let it be. But anyway, that was him.
Yeah, first time he came on the screen, he was mine as well. I was like, that's the kid from 13 Reasons Why. So I was correct. So I was happy with that.
You're better than me. It's driving me crazy.
And I think the same sort of outlook on that show. I think we got to the end of season 2, which this kid, who I think Tyler's his character in the show, has a pretty big part at the end of that season. And then the start of the 3rd season, we're just like, nah, this is rubbish. So
I didn't even start it. I didn't even start the 3rd season.
Good. All right. Us talking on a Netflix podcast about it, poorly about a Netflix show.
If they want to pay us to do this, then we'll talk more favorably about the rest of their content.
Question time. Have you got anything you wanted to ask?
Yeah, you kind of touched on the ending, but I kind of want more. No, I'm not talking about her recreating that persona. Right? That's the tack on. But do you think the ending was too unrealistic, or is that too naive a question? Because we're talking about technology that, as far as I know, doesn't exist to that level, do you think that tainted the film a little bit?
Yes, I had a similar thing, because I was like, are you happy with just to put the ending down to being a doppelganger as a bot? Like that's the conclusion that they lead you with, is that the technology is so advanced that someone can just input you can put your data in yourself, and then they can use that data that you put into, they hinted that it was because she logged into her account at the venue that they did recordings from, and all things like that. And I was a little bit disappointed that without if I was her, I'd want to see who the person or who the owner or the people that own this company are, and why are they doing this, rather than just signing up for another account and doing it over again.
Yeah, so a bit too far-fetched, right? You're like, well, that can't really happen, so it's a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah.
I think I kind of liked it for the reasons that were less practical and more telling a really good story about, or not story, a really good sending a really good message about what to look out for, what to be careful for, and what you can do to work your way around it. But yeah, I do get it. It could have been a cleaner, and it would have been an absolute belter of a movie if that was the case.
Anything else?
No, that was the only question I had for you.
I'm just a hypothetical. Why did she start working in this industry? I just really want an answer for that.
It's a really good question. Yeah, well, you sort of mentioned at the start, and yeah, it might have been nice to know. It didn't bother me because you can understand how invested she is in it, and you probably get the impression that maybe she was looking for work in fields that didn't suit her. She was never satisfied with her. She stumbled across this and was instantly gratified by the way that it functioned, and all of a sudden realized that this is something that I'm good at. And I'm actually going to invest a lot of time, effort, and money into making myself the best web girl. What do they call cam girl?
Cam girl.
That wrong. Cam girl, the best cam girl I can be. That's how I sort of read it. But it would have been nice. It could have done with it. But then it maybe takes away a little bit from the thriller element. That's just this bang bang. Here we go. But yeah, it's a good question.
That's a fair answer because I don't have one. So yeah, good. All right, I think that's time to start to wrap this up and. We give a rating out of 5 at the end to give an average out of 5 and hit us off.
Yeah, this was a really enjoyable, short, sharp thriller. It kept me on my toes. It explores an environment that is foreign to me, but it feels really close to home at the same time because of its ability to draw me in on this feeling of being locked out. And all of that combined with that uneasy, wary tone that's set up immediately, it made for a pretty compelling watch for me. So it's 3.5 stars for Cam.
Nice, good. Yeah, performances, ideas all worked fairly well. To me, it just needed some more rounding out to make it more believable. I think, like you mentioned at the end, and it probably would have stuck with me a bit more. So I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5, which gives us an average of a 3. Nice.
That's basically what the rest of the world is saying.
Yeah, they bring us together and we can combine to be like everyone else. We have social platforms. We have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Question this week is: who's the movie's intended audience? Who do you make this film for? Do you make it for? Is it to get those teen boys on because they're like, oh, this idea of this industry, and then send them a message that it's not necessarily a beautiful world for these people? Or, I'm not sure. I don't know.
I think it's really far-reaching. I don't think this is girls who are 16 to 30 who can completely understand the idea of online gratification, or boys who maybe just want to be a little bit pervy and get the idea of it. Because it's this whole story is within a really nice thriller, means that if you're a movie fan, you can really enjoy this film.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot more to it than anything too pigeonholed. But I like how you mentioned we've got our social channels, so please give us a few likes and some shares so we can have that gratification too.
we live off it, please. We are back again next week for a Christmas film. It's a romantic Christmas comedy from 2018 called The Princess Switch. It's directed by Mike Roll and it stars Vanessa Hudgens, Sam Palladino, and Nick Segar. That's what we've got next week for you.
It is an enormous change of pace.
Yes, massively. Hopefully something that's got a little bit of a nice sentimentality to it.
You know me in Christmas films.
Yes, I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy it. So Vanessa Hudgens, I'm not complaining.
I like her too.
Good. All right, well, thank you for chatting, and I'll see you next week.
That was a good chat. It was a short episode, but I think we got a lot out of that one. That was good.
I think, yeah, very succinct. That was great.
Just like the movie.
Yes.
Didn't waste a scene.
All right, see you then.
See you next week.